Legacy can take many forms, right?
Yeah,
You taught me that.
right.
What's up everyone? Alex here. For years, developers have been reluctant to create AAA turn-based RPGs, believing that the genre would never command the level of sales as other popular titles like Assassin's Creed or Call of Duty. But the release of Baldur's Gate 3 in 2023 proved the contrary, selling at least 15 million copies since its launch. And while both the Persona series and Metaphor ReFantazio carry the torch for AAA turn-based JRPGs, the kind that look and feel like Final Fantasy from 7 to 10 and 13, or Lost Odyssey from Mistwalker, have yet to make a true comeback. And with the massive success of Baldur's Gate 3, I can't help but wonder how a modern, high-budget turn-based JRPG of that caliber would be received today. As it turns out, the developers behind Clair Obscur Expedition 33 set out to answer that very question. And after spending over 40 hours with the game, I can honestly say that Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a beautifully melancholic aria, one that laments the slow disappearance of AAA JRPGs, yet boldly reimagines how tried and true gameplay can speak to a new generation. And in doing so, it makes a statement few games dare to attempt. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a turn-based Japanese-style RPG set in an alternate reality Belle Epoque Paris, developed by Sandfall Interactive and published by Kepler Interactive, who provided me with this PS5 game code. Every year since the fracture, the mysterious paintress awakens to continue her deadly countdown, painting a number lower than the last. And with each completed stroke, everyone of that age turns to ash and dies. You play the role of Gustav, the leader of Expedition 33, as you and your team set out to stop the paintress' deadly countdown, unaware of the deeper mysteries that shroud the continent. Before diving into the review, a quick note. Because the continent remains largely uncharted, I've taken extra care to preserve the sense of discovery that defines this journey. The footage in this video has been carefully edited, major story beats have been abstracted, and while core gameplay mechanics are mentioned, the lore and narrative context behind them have been deliberately obscured to protect the game's surprises. That said, I'd strongly caution anyone planning to watch other reviews. This is absolutely one of those games best experienced as blind as possible. One of the biggest inspirations for Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is Lost Odyssey, and it's especially clear in its gameplay. Enemies roam freely across the field, and when you strike them or they make contact with you, you're pulled into a separate battle screen where the fight begins. Similar to Lost Odyssey's aim ring system, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 lets you power up your skills by pressing a button when the cursor aligns with a highlighted zone. When defending, you can choose to dodge roll or parry enemy attacks, and occasionally you'll need to jump to avoid certain blows. Dodge rolling and jumping offer more generous timing windows, while parrying is much stricter, requiring near-perfect timing right at the moment of impact. That said, mastering parries comes with major rewards. Successful parries build AP for that character, and if you chain several in a row, you can even trigger a powerful counterattack. The game also labels each enemy move by attack type, giving you a helpful heads up on the kind of animation and timing you'll need to watch out for. Now, one concern I had going in was the constant camera movement during attacks, which can make it hard to catch the timing prompt when you're trying to power up a skill. Thankfully, the developers have addressed this in a smart way. The timing prompts stay locked to a fixed part of the screen while the action and camera move around them. That small detail makes a big difference, especially for players prone to motion sickness, by giving you a steady focal point in the middle of the chaos. If you really must turn off camera movement during combat, you have the option to do so by disabling the camera movement accessibility setting, though the game warns you that this makes some attacks harder to read. Understandably, some players are still concerned about the difficulty, leaning too heavily on precise button timing. And as someone whose eye-hand coordination isn't what it used to be, I get it. But I can honestly say that smart decision-making still carries you through, thanks to generous checkpoint placement throughout levels and the ability to camp and recover on the overworld map. Chroma elixirs, which fully restore your entire party's health, can be refilled at checkpoints, along with other key consumables used in battle. Which brings me to a detail I haven't seen many others mention. With the Paintress claiming lives year after year, it's highly unlikely you'll come across any human settlements on the continent. And without towns to restock your supplies, it raises an important question. How does Clair Obscur Expedition 33 handle consumables? The answer is pretty clever. The game gives you a limited set of consumables that fully replenish whenever you rest at a checkpoint. I've mentioned checkpoints before. These flag markers, left behind by earlier expeditions, also act as automatic save points. And as you venture deeper into the continent, you'll find items that let you upgrade your stock of consumables. Alongside the Chroma Elixir I mentioned earlier, you'll start with a small healing tint that restores 30% health, a couple of small energy tints that grant 3 AP, and a small revive tint that brings an ally back to life with 30% health. Just keep in mind, these 3 can only be used during battle. This turns the game into a kind of survival experience. With limited provisions at your disposal, every time you rest at a checkpoint, there's a cost. Every enemy you've defeated comes back to life, bosses excluded. So you're constantly weighing safety against risk. That said, it can also be really useful if you want a safe way to grind for levels. Returning to combat, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 replaces traditional MP with AP as its primary resource. Your starting AP resets at the beginning of each battle, and the amount you begin with depends on whether you ambush your enemies or not. You gain 1 AP at the start of every turn by landing a regular attack or by successfully parrying incoming attacks. Skills consume AP, but ranged attacks work a little differently. They use up AP like bullets in a magazine. You'll want to shoot enemies to hit weak points for massive opening damage, or to take down flying foes that are too fast for melee. And here's a key detail. Shooting does not use up your turn. An aspect of Clair Obscur Expedition 33 that I absolutely love is how every single character has a unique gameplay mechanic that complements their individual playstyle. It's a refreshing change, especially in a genre where many modern JRPGs tend to blur the lines between party members, letting you build them all the same way with near identical abilities. Take my favorite character, Mael, for example. She's a fencer who can switch between multiple stances, some that boost her damage and others that strengthen her defenses. To make things even more distinct, each character has their own personal skill tree. You're free to purchase any connected skills as long as you have enough points. That said, there's still a strategic layer to all of this. Each character can only equip 6 skills at a time, so you'll need to think carefully about which ones to bring into battle. Lastly, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 includes a familiar elemental weakness system, complete with nullification, absorption, and the satisfying payoff of hitting enemies with exactly the right spell. When it comes to character customization, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 offers a ton of flexibility. In addition to allocating points across 5 different attributes and unlocking skills through a skill tree, you'll also be working with 2 key systems, Pictos and Luminas, which function similarly to Lost Odyssey's accessory skill inheritance. Pictos act like powerful accessories, each granting a unique perk. After winning 4 battles with a Picto equipped, your character permanently learns that perk, which is then assigned a Lumina cost. To equip it, you'll need to spend Lumina points. The beauty of this system is that once you've learned a perk, you're no longer tied to the Picto to use it. Since you can only equip 3 Pictos at a time but can stack multiple Lumina-based perks as long as you have the points, it opens up a lot more room for creative builds and strategy. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 also features an interesting weapon system that's closely tied to its attribute mechanics. Similar to games like Elden Ring, weapons scale with specific attributes, and each one has a letter grade indicating how much that stat boosts its attack power. Some weapons can even level up just through repeated use, unlocking powerful passive abilities over time. And if you've got the right crafting ingredients, you can manually enhance them even further. All in all, this wide range of mechanics shows just how thoughtfully the developers pulled inspiration from across the RPG genre. They've picked and blended systems from a variety of games to create something that's not only fun to engage with, but also deeply tied to the game's themes. The unique challenge of building a world where you might not encounter any towns is something most developers don't have to consider. And yet, the solutions here feel natural and well integrated. More importantly, it's just fantastic game design at its core. Every encounter, every upgrade feels meaningful, making the moment-to-moment gameplay incredibly satisfying. But what makes Clair Obscur Expedition 33 even more special is its presentation. It calls back to a time when Square Enix turn-based games represented the pinnacle of CG artistry, with Lost Odyssey once again serving as a clear point of inspiration. While your first few minutes on the continent are fairly linear, it doesn't take long for things to open up. It wasn't long before I was tracking down powerful weapons and rare Pictos hidden in out-of-the-way spots. And by the time I reached the end of that starting zone, the game really let loose, giving me full access to the continent, Clair Obscur's take on a world map that's fully explorable and scaled relatively to your party. Yes, friends, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 has a world map. These shifts in scale makes the game's areas feel much larger than the classic pre-rendered zones from old-school Final Fantasy titles. There's verticality, a variety of traversal options, and an overall sense of openness that makes exploration genuinely fun. And it doesn't hurt that the environments are absolutely stunning, packed with dramatic landmarks and breathtaking vistas. I know it's not common for us JRPG fans to stop and admire dungeon design, since dungeons are usually just a means to an end. But seriously, when you get your hands on this game, take a moment to look around. It's worth it. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is fully voice acted, featuring a standout cast that includes Charlie Cox of Daredevil fame, Jennifer English, best known as Shadowheart in Baldur's Gate 3, Andy Serkis, who played Gollum in The Lord of the Rings, and Ben Starr, the voice of Clive in Final Fantasy XVI. The performances are heartfelt and emotional, and the characters are well animated to match the strength of the acting. This is one of those cases where the voice work genuinely elevates the storytelling experience. That said, in some early scenes, like the opening conversations with various NPCs, the animation does take a bit of a back seat. This is less of a critique and more of a small observation, but it's clear that the game saves its best animation work for the bigger, more dramatic moments. I played Clair Obscur Expedition 33 on PS5 in 4K, in both quality and performance modes, and noticed a few key differences. Quality mode uses a lot of post-processing that softens the overall image, sometimes to the point where it looks a bit blurry, and caps the frame rate at 30 FPS. Performance mode, on the other hand, offers higher frame rates along with a much sharper image with far less post-processing, though it does introduce noticeable shimmering due to a more limited anti-aliasing filter. In both modes, cutscenes are capped at 30 FPS and seem to revert to a version of quality mode temporarily. Personally, I actually liked how the PS5's quality mode looked. It has a soft, cinematic feel that works well with the game's presentation. That said, I ultimately found that performance mode was the best way to play. Despite the shimmering, its higher frame rate helps reduce motion sickness for those sensitive to camera movement, and it feels just a bit more responsive, especially during those timed prompts. And finally, the soundtrack, composed by Lorient Testar, is easily my favorite of the year. It's one of those scores that truly takes you on a journey, which makes perfect sense given that one of Testar's biggest inspirations is The Legend of Zelda. Every track feels tightly woven into the storytelling, enhancing both the atmosphere and the emotional weight of each scene. Alice Dufour-Pessier, who also serves as co-composer, delivers haunting vocals that echo through the title screen before you even begin your adventure, almost as if giving voice to the mysterious paintress herself. Her singing creates a mood that's both unsettling and serene, depending on the moment. And yes, all of the singing vocals are in French, which couldn't be more fitting given the game's setting and themes. While the stories couldn't be more different, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 shares the same somber, melancholic tone that made Lost Odyssey so emotionally resonant. Everything, from its presentation to its storytelling, echoes that same weight. In Lumiere, a city where people await their deaths each year as part of a grim ritual, there's something quietly tragic and deeply human in how these lives are honored just before they fade. It's heartbreaking, and it effectively sets the emotional tone for the journey ahead, one that stands in stark contrast to Lost Odyssey's focus on immortality. Here, death isn't something rare or feared. It's routine, a looming inevitability that entire generations have grown up expecting. In many ways, it reminds me of what the cast of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 goes through, a grim and heartbreaking reality from our perspective, but one that's strangely celebrated in their world. But what makes this setup so powerful is how it resonates beyond the narrative itself. It feels like a metaphor, one that mirrors the fading legacy of this style of JRPG. While other subgenres are thriving in today's renaissance, it's easy to forget that there was a time when JRPGs were on the cutting edge. Technical showcases that stood alongside the best-looking games of their generation. And now, these moments feel like fleeting memories. And just like the citizens of Lumiere, we've slowly come to accept the loss of something once vibrant. That said, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 has an advantage that Lost Odyssey didn't: the continent. This vast, unexplored land gives the game room to breathe, and room to surprise you. As I mentioned earlier, I won't spoil the discoveries I made throughout my journey. But I will say this: the continent isn't just bleak. It's full of moments that pierce through the gloom with awe, wonder, and, believe it or not, even levity. And the game uses those moments brilliantly. One early example: the mimes. These quirky enemies are Clair Obscur's take on Dragon Quest's metal slimes. Elusive, tricky to track down, and rewarding if you manage to defeat them. They give you experience and cosmetics, letting you unlock new hairstyles and outfits to customize your characters. It's a small but delightful surprise that feels right at home in a world this emotionally heavy, like a moment of levity breaking through the gloom. These fleeting moments of joy and discovery offer much needed contrast. They give you hope that maybe, just maybe, this expedition won't end like all the others. And if you took the time to explore Lumiere at the start, speaking to every NPC before you left, you'll carry those memories with you as emotional context once you arrive on the continent. All of this is to say, the story and lore behind Lumiere, the paintress, and everything else you uncover across the continent is genuinely fascinating. It feels like stepping into a world unlike anything else out there. And the way that drama unfolds, alongside the wonder you'll feel as you unearth its secrets, might just dazzle, delight, and move you in ways you haven't experienced in a JRPG in years. When I really sit down and think about it, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 isn't just a love letter to a fading style of JRPG. It's a heartfelt tribute crafted by developers who clearly get it. Their reverence for the genre, and especially for games like Lost Odyssey, shines through in every system, every detail, and every emotional beat. It's bold, beautiful, and it dares to carry the weight of legacy while building something entirely its own. Whether you're here for the strategy, the storytelling, or just to feel something again in a turn-based JRPG, this is absolutely an expedition worth taking, and easily stands out as one of the best games of the year.